Recently at the World of Tech, we've been putting the Nokia E7 through its paces, and now it's time to put all that information into an in-depth review. From the moment you get your E7 out of the box, you're going to notice it has a unique, gorgeous appearance. After a few moments, you'll also realize that this phone is designed for use and it's going to be able to take a small beating. Let's take a more detailed look at the hardware. The left side of the device features one switch. That switch is a simple lock and unlock switch that just activates the screen. On the right side of the device, we have a dedicated camera button, a volume rocker, and a rather confusing SIM card tray. At first you will think that this is an SD card slot, however, as you will see in a minute, pulling the tray out reveals the SIM card. The top of the phone is where all the action happens. We have a 3.5mm headphone jack, a power button, and a charger port. And going back one, we have a mini HDMI port. And on the bottom of the device, we have a built-in microphone of a decent quality. The whole of the phone is made from hard steel that makes the device almost feel like a brick. However, I'd rather it feel like a brick than feel like something from the pound shop. The Nokia E7 has a 4-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 640 by 360, and it comes in a 16:9 ratio. The screen is extremely nice and produces amazing colours, and the text is pretty crisp clear as well. Now, the Nokia E7 by far isn't the thinnest smartphone in the market. However, it's pretty thin considering its slide-out keyboard. After holding the phone, you will actually realize that the phone isn't the lightest of phones either, weighing in at 176 grams. When putting the phone side by side to other mobile devices, it becomes clear that the phone is a little bit on the thick side, but it's not too bad at all. Being next to one of the thinnest smartphones makes it look a bit chunkier. When I see a physical keyboard, I'm instantly scared that it's going to feel extremely horrible and cramped to type on, just like the BlackBerry Curve H520 for example. No, thank you. Okay, so I may not like the BlackBerry Curve keyboard, however, I can't say the same for the Nokia E7 keyboard. In fact, I'm going to admit it, I practically fell in love with the keyboard on the Nokia E7. It's so nice to type on and it's spaced out pretty well as well. The keyboard on the Nokia E7 is spread across 4 rows. The keys are evenly spaced out, which makes for a better typing experience, and each key is individually raised. The biggest benefit of this I found was it did increase my opportunities of writing a sentence without making a spelling mistake. Furthermore evidence of the quality of the build of the Nokia E7 is the keyboard pops out with a bang. The keyboard pops out so quick it's sometimes not visible to the human eye. Now the keyboard does take a bit of a push, however when you do put pressure it doesn't feel like the screen is going to separate from the keyboard. Another sweet advantage on the keyboard is the fact that it has up, down, left and right arrows to avoid greasing your screen in certain situations. These arrows work pretty much in any application, including the home menu. Now, we've covered the hardware. What about the software? We won't be going too much into the software as there is a separate video at theworldoftech.net and on the YouTube channel with an in-depth tour of the Symbian 3 operating system. The main user interface of the Symbian 3 operating system reminds me so much of Android and HTC Sense. Just like Android, all you have to do is hold down on a widget and then you can easily drag it around to customize your homepage to your preferred liking. Then tap Done to complete your customization. The biggest comparison with HTC Sense is the ability to have multiple screens. Just like HTC Sense, you can tap the circles at the bottom of the user interface and it will simply change screens so you can have multiple screens for multiple occasions. To start customizing your own secondary page, simply hold down on an open space and then add whatever widget you fancy. Then all you'd have to do is keep doing this until you're happy with your user interface. By pressing the menu button, it brings you to a lot more options. Some of the options include calendar, contacts, music, web, photos, social networking, and other applications. When sliding out the keyboard, you will notice that the user interface of the phone will turn around with you. From there, you can use the dedicated keys to move around the operating system. When opening the calendar application, you will notice that the user interface is extremely simple. There is little blips on the date to let you know that you have something to do. Whoops, it looks like I'm not on schedule. Never mind. By clicking the options button, you can easily add a new entry, or go to a date, or do anything else of that matter. After clicking add a new entry, the on-screen instructions are pretty simple. So simple, even I can do it. Now, let's talk about something a bit more in the media category. Let's start off with music. The music player has a very simple user interface that's easy to work, and the sound quality isn't too bad. Speaking about sound quality, let's check it out. The audio is pretty clear, however, after putting the volume pretty high, you do notice that the speakers do start to distort. Now let's take a more in-depth look at the web browser. Now the web browser isn't the most responsive, and that's down to the lack of hardware support. Unfortunately, the Nokia E7 only has 256 megabytes of RAM, so the device does lag while loading web pages. One advantage with the Symbian web browser is the fact that you have full screen browsing ability. To simply get to your settings, click the arrows in the bottom corner and they will pop up at the bottom. When sliding the keyboard up to use it for typing in a web page, you will notice that everything rotates with you. Symbian's web browser isn't bad at all. Just like the operating system, it still needs a little bit more development, and this thing can seriously make a comeback. Now, if you're like me and social media is a part of everyday life, then you're going to be really happy to know that Symbian has its own Twitter and Facebook client built in. Now, the Twitter application is extremely annoying. It does its job, however, I prefer using the physical keyboard on the Nokia E7. And as you can see by this shot here, the application doesn't seem to want to rotate with me, and that is really annoying. So I have to kind of twist my head, and if somebody doesn't realize that this problem is happening with the Nokia E7, I'm stood there typing out a tweet looking like an idiot. Now finally, something that iOS can't even manage, and that is proper multitasking. Now Symbian 3 is extremely good at multitasking, and it's pretty fluent as well. Closing and switching applications can't get any easier. Just to close the application, simply click on the cross in the top right corner. To get back to the application, just simply tap on the application's window. One of the most annoying things is when a phone manufacturer makes great hardware, pretty good software, but then backs it up by a terrible battery. Thankfully, I can easily get a good 2 days of battery life off the Nokia E7, and that is with a decent amount of usage. Another thing that impressed me a lot with the Nokia E7 is Nokia have included a really top quality antenna. Maybe Apple should have done that. Jokes aside, but I'm finding it pretty difficult to lose any signal. I'm getting 3 to 3.5 G internet speeds, which is pretty damn good. Cameras on smartphones are becoming more and more popular by the generation, and now you're seeing cameras of up to 8 megapixel, and the Nokia E7 isn't below par. Now the Nokia E7 camera clocks in at 8 megapixel with a resolution of 3264 by 2448 pixels. It has a dual LED flash with video capabilities of 720p video at 25 frames per second. For a full test in different lighting situations and daylight situations, please head over to theworldoftech.net where you will find a full camera test. Now onto the front-facing camera, you will notice that it's extremely grainy and it really does not impress me that much. I thought the iPad 2 camera was bad. Well, it looks HD compared to this one. Overall, the Nokia E7 definitely has a few improvements needed, especially in the operating system. According to Techno Buffalo president John Rettinger, Symbian 3 is dead, and I can see where he's coming from. It does seem to be a little bit old-fashioned and looks to be what I'd find on my first ever Nokia. However, when it comes to hardware, the Nokia E7 smashes it in every single way, shape and form. It has a beautiful keyboard and an amazing resolution when it comes to the screen. Please Nokia, take my advice. Update the user interface and your superb hardware with a nicer user interface of your software. Nokia can be a top smartphone seller again.